Affordable Care Act has provided insurance for millions of people who otherwise did not have it. It did not go far enough. In my view, health care is a right, not a privilege. We need to move to a Medicare for all, single-payer health. When my Republican colleagues prepared their budget, I was involved in that because I am the ranking member, the leader of the opposition, representing Democrats on the Budget Committee. And I want to take a brief moment for you to understand what the Republican budget was about that passed the House and the Senate. And this is what it was. What the Republican budget did was throw 27 million Americans off of health insurance. And when you ask them, what happens to 27 million people who no longer have health insurance? How many will die or get sicker than they otherwise would have gotten? They have no answer. The Republican budget cut Pell Grants by $90 billion over a 10-year period, making it harder for low-income and working-class kids to get a college education. At a time when millions of families are struggling to put food on the table, the Republican budget cut billions of dollars from nutrition programs. To add insult to injury, the Republican budget provided over $250 billion in tax breaks for the top 0.2%. I would hope, in a country we all have differences of opinion, and I would understand that billionaires, and not all of them are greedy or selfish, but those who want more and more, who think that $50 billion is not enough, they need more, they got to step on poor people to get it. I understand that. And they support a budget like this. But this is what I do not understand. I do not understand how working class people in New Hampshire, in Vermont, and all over this country continue to vote for people who are working every day against their own best interest. Got to get the word out to our Republican friends, the middle class, working class, lower income people. Do not vote for people who are attacking the needs of your kids and your parents. It makes no sense. Now, in my view, this country has made significant progress, and we should be very proud of our efforts over the last several decades to make this country a less discriminatory society. If we were standing in this room 30, 40 years ago, and we were here together, and somebody jumped up and said, I think that maybe in the year 2008, America will overcome its centuries of racism and elect an African American as president, my guess would be that the other people in that room would have said, ain't gonna happen, not gonna happen. But it did happen, and Barack Obama was reelected. And the point is not to talk about Obama, you like him, you don't like it, that's not the point. The point is that the American people all across this country finally were prepared to vote for a candidate based on his ideas, not the color of his skin. We should be proud of that. And that's the good news. But let me tell you what is not so good news. And the bad news is everybody knows in this room that racism still remains a much too real part of American life. I wish I could tell you otherwise, but you know that that is true. And in that regard, I am not just talking. I was in Charleston, South Carolina a few days ago, and I was thinking about that unbelievable, insane event where a young man walks into a church, into a Bible study program, talks to people, is welcomed in, and then while they're discussing the Bible, he takes out a gun and kills 9 people. I'm not just talking about that. I cannot understand that, to be honest with you. I am not just talking about the fact that in this country there are hundreds of groups, hate groups, whose sole function in life, if you can believe it, is to foment hatred. Can you imagine being part of a group whose only function is to talk about hatred for African Americans, for immigrants, for gays, for Jews, whatever it is, anybody they are not, they hate. Hard to imagine that. But what I am also talking about are names like Sandra Bland, and Michael Brown, and Rekia Boyd. And many other unarmed African Americans who died at the hands of police officers or in police custody. Now let me say a word about that. I am the former mayor, as you know, of the city of Burlington, and in that capacity I work very, very closely with our police department. And here's the truth. The vast majority of police officers in this country do a good job. It is an enormous... I was in South Carolina the other day, and some officer there told me, I asked him, what's the starting salary for a police officer who puts his life on the line? $27,000. Right? You got police officers who have a difficult job, they are stressed out, they have crazy schedules, often they are underpaid and overworked. But let me say this, like any other public official, any police officer who breaks the law must be held accountable. We need not only to take on institutional racism, but equally important, we need fundamental changes in a broken criminal justice system. You have seen on TV, as I have seen, local police departments, local departments that look like invading armies with all kinds of heavy-duty military equipment. We want our police departments to be part of the community, not perceived as an oppressor force. In my view, that means, in my view, that we've got to move toward community policing, where police officers are part of the community, where local people know the cop on the beat, can talk to them about the crack house down the street. We also need to make sure that police departments around this country reflect the diversity of the populations they serve. In my view, we also need to take a hard look at the so-called war on drugs. Too many young people have seen their lives destroyed, have police records for non-violent crimes. And that has got to change. I find it... I find it quite remarkable that many young Americans have received a criminal record for smoking marijuana, but not one major Wall Street executive has a criminal record for destroying the economy. When we talk about bringing our people together, we must not forget that today there are 11 million undocumented people in this country. I was in Phoenix last month, talked to a group of young Hispanic kids, tears rolling out of their eyes because they were afraid of being deported or seeing their parents deported. In my view, undocumented people in this country deserve legal protection now. We need to move toward comprehensive immigration reform and a sensible path toward citizenship. You are looking at a U.S. Senator and a former congressman who looked at all of the evidence that George W. Bush and Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld and Condoleezza Rice and everybody else were telling us. This senator voted against the war in Iraq.